to do with being a continuation of a tradition and like an awareness of history and an awareness of heredity, an awareness of inheritance, and a desire to engage with it, whether it's to continue it or to turn your back to it, but to do that in an active way rather than a lazy way. Another way to think about, that I think about religiosity is sort of like what I was saying about wanting to live near the ocean, you know? I think there are sometimes our definitions of what it means to believe or to be religious have become so narrow and pinned to refer to a specific idea of a God from a specific religious tradition, as opposed to something more like a feeling of wonder or a feeling of humility that I believe is universal. I don't believe that there are people who don't experience a kind of wonder, let's say looking at the stars at night, or looking at a black ocean from the shore. It evokes something that is outside of the realm of normal experience. It doesn't mean that there's somebody up there who is interfering with human events, or who cares. It doesn't mean that you're going to go to an afterlife. But it does mean that there's something that transcends a kind of daily, humdrum, domestic experience. I have been very surprised by how often religion comes up in my writing, because I don't feel it coming up in my life that often, to talk about the difference between writing and life. You know, if somebody had asked me before I wrote my first book, do you feel Jewish? I probably would have said, not really. But if someone had then handed me the book, it's like, like a bloody glove in a trial. Like, whatever this person has been saying about himself, he had no motive, he couldn't have been there that night, his blood is on the glove. I mean, he did it. And the book is like, whatever you've been saying about yourself, this is the book written by somebody who has a Jewish identity. So, you know, I play these often games with my kids, like word games or trivia games. And the other day, just a couple weeks ago, we were having breakfast and we were playing a trivia game. And I asked my younger son if he could name 5 kinds of dinosaur. He got very proud and happy because, of course, I can do that. You got Tyrannosaurus Rex, your T-Rex, your Tyrannosaurus, you got your Rex. And I was faced with one of those parental choices, and I told him, no, those are actually all the same dinosaur. I hate you! But then he said to me, did you ask me that question because there's a dinosaur on the back of my t-shirt? And I said to him, what I'll say to you, full honesty, I hadn't seen it. I just hadn't seen it yet. You know, it was the beginning of the day, he'd just come down, the front of his shirt was completely white and nondescript. I hadn't seen it. But he knew what you know, which is, of course I had seen it. I just wasn't aware of the fact that I had seen it. And it fell into that huge category of things that you see without knowing you've seen, which is much, much bigger than the things that you've seen and know that you've seen. Our field of vision is so narrow, but our field of experience is so broad. And there are things that we hear without knowing that we've heard them. There are things that we've thought without knowing that we've thought them until later. You know, like a Freudian slip. There are things that we felt without knowing that we felt. So I like when writing reveals to me those things. When I'm writing from the things that, experiences that I've had without not necessarily knowing that I've had them, but not knowing how central they've been, how important they've been to my life. And religion is like the big back of the t-shirt for me, or it's one of them, one of the biggest, that I am continually surprised by the strength of my engagement with it as a writer.
Were you raised in a religious way?
It really depends who you ask, but you're asking me. I mean, I say that because I think my mother would say yes, I think my father would say no, and I would obviously feel some discomfort in answering the question. I did go to Hebrew school once a week. I did have a bar mitzvah. I can, like many, many American Jews, I can read Hebrew without knowing what it means. So the main function of Hebrew in my life growing up is we would write notes to each other in secular school, where we would transliterate English into Hebrew letters. So it'd be like, this teacher's a fucking schmuck, here, and then they'd say, young man, what are you reading? And say, oh, no, it's just Hebrew, it's nothing. Unfortunately, a lot of my teachers were Jewish. Didn't realize at the time. So now I'm going through the same wrestling I think that my parents probably went through in considering what I want, for my kids, because until they're a certain age, you make choices on their behalf, whether you're choosing, people often say, like, how can you raise your kids as a vegetarian? Shouldn't they have the choice? If you raise them eating meat, you're not giving them the choice. There is no choice when you're that age, because you're at the mercy of your parents. You're just not informed, you don't have the necessary will, you're not doing the shopping and cooking as well. And it's the same with, it's not a coincidence that my kids were rooting against Trump. It's not a coincidence that we root for the same baseball team. Until a certain age, you are producing, hopefully not replicas of yourself, but humans who are sort of like, who consider the same range of choices that you do with the same kind of seriousness that you do, even if they will reach different conclusions. So now I have to think, God, am I going to force my son to have a bar mitzvah like I was forced? And when I looked up at my parents and said, why are you making me do this? Well, because we were made to do this. That didn't feel good at the time, and yet it might feel like the right answer now. Obviously, I would try to give a slightly more sophisticated and like intellectually acceptable answer, but ultimately that is part of the truth. Like, this is a continuation of something that's very old and deserves and requires a kind of humility.
Do you think that the rituals and traditions make more sense the older you get?
Well, you're more capable, I think, of performing ritual and creating ritual. And I think that ritual is everything. It keeps life organized and meaningful, especially, as I was saying about the technology and all of those people on the other side of the screen who are actively trying to make you addicted, literally. They get paid more money as you are more addicted. So many cultural forces are urging us to be fragmented and distracted and to be recipients of media, whatever form it takes, whether it's TV, movies, news, whether it's advertisements, whether it's sounds. There's very few places you can go in life now where you're not asked to be the recipient of media and having your attention dispersed, move away from you. Somebody, I can't remember who, maybe somebody in the audience knows, said that attention is the purest form of generosity. And I think that we've become very miserly in that sense, and miserly towards others and miserly in our own lives, toward ourselves. And so how do you resist all of these temptations or distractions? I don't think it's in increments. I don't think it's by saying, I sure would like to resist that a little bit more. I think it's through ritual and saying on, Shabbat, I'm not a believer, but I do believe in Shabbat being a great idea. We are not going to use electricity tonight. We are not going to look at screens. We are not going to watch TV. We're going to have a meal that we cook together. We're going to sit at a table. And I should say that the Shabbat that we do incorporates some of the rituals in this book, which really aren't Jewish at all, but feel sort of in keeping with the spirit.
Oh, the walking around?
Well, we walk around with our eyes closed, yeah.
Tell me about the ritual, how you do it.
Well, after the meal, after the meal and before dessert, we close our eyes and we walk around the house for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes with your eyes closed feels like 2 hours. You should try it. It feels really long. And you move through a stage of it being sort of funny, and every time it's the same. Like, kids kind of laugh, you bump into things on purpose, and then all of a sudden it becomes dead silent, and you just hear like hands moving along walls or feet moving across the floor. And the only rule that we have is that I set a timer. We will do it until the timer goes off, and then we will reconvene at the table and open our eyes at the same time. And when we open our eyes, we've been doing this a lot for several years. Every time we open our eyes, it's this incredible revelation. Or a number of revelations, like, I did not know my house as well as I thought I did. I feel a kind of estrangement that is wonderful. Not alienating, but really intimate and beautiful. And also, I had taken for granted what it is to see. You know, until you close your eyes, you just don't remember. You're so used to seeing that you become blind to seeing, you know? And this ritual just helps us with that. It gives us a sense of gratitude and appreciation, and it comes at a small price, 10 minutes of walking around with your eyes closed. But it wouldn't happen unless it was insisted upon. You know, unless things have a context, they just never happen. Anything. Like, do you have kids?
Yes, 2 kids.
Okay.
I was just thinking about I'm going to start that ritual tomorrow. I think many here thought the same.
Like, kids ask all kinds of questions for me where I'm surprised that I don't have an answer. Like, can you explain to me again why the death penalty's wrong? Yeah, hold on, let me just think about that for a minute. Why hadn't I thought about that enough? Yeah, I hadn't, because there hadn't been a context for the thought. So it's good in life to create contexts for the kinds of experiences you want to have happen, because they probably won't happen otherwise. So it's good to have contexts for gratitude. It's good to have contexts for reflections on mortality that aren't like your parents dying, because then it's too late to put it to use, you know? And it's good to have contexts for like encountering our own sensibilities of who we are. Like, if we are on the backs of ourselves on the backs of the t-shirts, when do we ever get a glimpse of them? And for me, writing is the context for encountering my own sensibility. So this book is not autobiographical. The events in the book don't correspond to the events in my life. But if I were to die tomorrow and go to some kind of like place of judgment, and someone said, "Who were you?" I could point to the book and say that's who I was. Not because it tells the story of my life, but it does tell the story of my sensibility. So what would have happened if I hadn't written the book? You know, what would I point to? It really, it's to me, it's a very scary thought.
Thank you, Jonathan Safran.